Now, I remember when we'd get together at school reunions or on whatever occasion, we would start to talk about our school days. And somehow our conversations would always drift toward our experiences with Miss G. I mean, we'd talk for hours about her. Specifically, we'd share stories about what a difference she'd made in each one of our lives. About 15, maybe 20 years ago now, I decided that I wanted to not only express my appreciation about Miss G to my friends, I also wanted to express it directly to her, to Miss G. But how? Everyone, including me, had kind of lost track of Miss G and where she lived. We knew she no longer worked as a teacher, but no one seemed to know exactly where she lived, whether it was still in Michigan or maybe somewhere in that general environment. I tried reaching out to her, but all the addresses I had were simply too old to have forwarding addresses. And so, after a few months, I finally gave up. But finding her was still on my mind. Now, how many of you know that God has a sense of humor? A few years ago, after one of my keynote speeches, I did something that I'd never done before. Now, during the keynote, I had shared a story about how much I appreciated Miss G, which I've done hundreds of times before. But at this particular keynote, for some reason, I don't know why now, but I also said something like, you know what, I'd really like to find my sixth grade teacher. If anyone here knows how to find a missing person, or if you know someone who knows how to do that, please come up afterwards and introduce yourself to me. I'd really appreciate having your help. Well, shortly after I finished speaking, a number of people came up and thanked me. And as I was preparing to gather my things and leave, I spotted a woman walking toward me. She stood out because she seemed very focused and intent on talking with me. So I stopped what I was doing to give her my full attention. She introduced herself as Helen. Now, Helen told me that she was a former attorney and that she knew someone who could help me find Miss G. She gave me this person's name and said he was a private investigator, a PI, who worked at the law firm she'd retired from. Helen also said if Miss G was still alive, this person was the person who could help me find her. Now, I'll share just the short version of my wonderful encounter with this private investigator. Long story short, the PI said, if she's still alive, we can find her. However, finding her will be like finding a needle in a haystack because of her age, gender, marital status, and many, many other variables. The PI said, let's work on this together. Right? Wow, very cool. I was so excited. After only a few months, guess what? We found her. We found Miss G, and I was absolutely thrilled. Now, we had a few protocols to follow before I could actually connect with her to express my appreciation. But after following all the formalities, you can imagine what it's like to hear the voice of your favorite teacher after almost 5 decades, right? I mean, wow, my, oh my. We must have talked for over an hour. Not only did I get to express my gratitude to Miss G, she actually remembered me, how I used to wear my hair, where I sat, that I wore glasses. I mean, mercy. And after all those years, she was incredibly grateful to be able to express her gratitude to me and to get reconnected with some of her other former students. You just never know, right? Now, this next story is from one of my clients who works with youth in the foster care system. Several years ago, Deb shared that she received a note from a woman who asked if she could stop by her office and thank her. Without thinking much about it, Deb said, "Sure, okay." Well, several days later, the woman visited Deb's office, and she told Deb that 10 years ago, she had been contemplating suicide. At that time, she was just 14 years old, but things in her life were so awful, so overwhelming, she just couldn't face things anymore, and she didn't think life was worth living. When she called the office 10 years ago, she told me she had spoken with a woman who told her how beautiful she was, how smart she was, and how her smile was positively contagious, and how there was no one else on the planet who was like her. No one. How she was perfect because that's how God made her, and how she had her whole life in front of her. She also told Deb that because of that call, that was the day her life changed. She told Deb, "You saved my life. Thank you." Deb is a social worker, and she actually kept this young woman on the line long enough to pick up her location so that if she was about to commit suicide, she would get some help. Right? Today, that 14-year-old adolescent is a young woman. She's married to a loving husband. She has 3 kids. And along the way, she also got her college degree. And in just a few months, she's looking forward to starting graduate school. She wants to be a social worker, just like Deb, the woman who helped save her life. What a blessing that after all those years, she wanted to reach out to Deb and express her appreciation. Now, I just love these stories. I'm sure you do as well. Expressing appreciation is not only good for the mind, it is good for the body, it is good for the spirit, and it is so good for the soul. Now, let me share a few more benefits with you about the value and the power of expressing and showing your appreciation. Letting go is a big benefit, right? Now, what do I mean by letting go? Well, sometimes we can actually begin to believe things that limit the way we approach life and that get in the way of how we handle difficult situations. For example, if you constantly tell yourself that, life is boring, then guess what? Then whatever comes next for you will likely be very, very boring. A self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So, rather than tell yourself that life is boring, try this instead. Remind yourself of the people and the moments and the situations in your life that make life joyful, that make you just feel like you're on top of the world, that make life worth living. In fact, in your gratitude journal, write down who and what make life worth living. Okay? And you know what? You will actually begin to see things differently. It's been said that seeing is believing. But in actuality, believing comes first. That's right. In other words, flip the script, and now you have believing is seeing. Believing is seeing. So believing that life is worthwhile will actually help you begin to see that life is very, very, very precious and very worthwhile. Now, here are a few more benefits of showing your appreciation. Earlier, I talked about bad hair moments or bad hair days, right? Well, you know what? Some people think that bad days, bad moments, are inevitable. But you know what? I don't buy that. Why? Because it's our attitude that can make all the difference. That's right, our attitude. It's how we view our days that counts. I tell my coaching clients this all the time. You know, how you view things can shape your day. And I encourage them to keep a gratitude journal, just like I'm encouraging you to do the same thing. In fact, earlier today, I texted one of my clients a little reminder, keep that attitude of gratitude and make sure you write stuff down in your journal. Okay? Now try this. In your gratitude journal, write down 5 or 6 different things that made you smile, or 5 or 6 different things that simply filled you up with happiness. Do this every day. It can be at the end of your day or at the beginning of your day. This practice will help you learn to track the good and, most importantly, to keep it separate from the bad. And guess what? The more you practice, the quicker you'll learn to find joy in any area of your life, to find joy in the everyday, to find joy in everyone and in everything. And soon your practice, right, that rehearsal, that practice, will become a habit that is as natural as breathing. Now, here's what's really great. I want you to picture yourself, okay? Picture yourself a year from today, a year from now. Because a year from now, your life will be very different. The way you think, the way you express yourself, how you handle rough times, difficult people, how you move through the circumstances in your life will be starkly different. Who you are a year from now will be a wonderful reminder of just how far you've come, just how far you've traveled on your journey. You will very likely still experience negative thoughts every so often. I mean, we all do, right? But you will actually handle those negative thoughts in a whole new way. Keeping a daily gratitude journal will provide a reference point if you ever find yourself slipping into negativity again. And that reference point can then become a compass point to help you realign yourself to what's important and what's truly magnificent about your life. Here's what I know for sure. The biggest benefit of keeping a daily gratitude journal is this. It will help you slow down and appreciate and value and treasure the beautiful, precious life you have. In the grand song of the universe, a positive outlook can make all the difference to your health, spiritually, physically, mentally, and emotionally. In fact, it can make all the difference in how we treat ourselves and how we treat others. My favorite book says, in everything, give thanks. Now, I like to begin and end each day with gratitude. I say thanks for a brand new day, a brand new start, and new chances. I say thanks at the end of the day when I say my prayers. Why? Not only because it feels good, but because gratitude is the source. It is the source of all blessings. I just love this poem by E.E. Cummings. It opens quite simply with these 4 words. I thank you, God. Now, most of you know that E.E. Cummings doesn't give titles to his poetry. So if you ever want to look this poem up, just look for these words. I thank you, God.